welcome to this brand new episode of the
Geek
Buddies! Hey!
Recording this on a Friday morning here. Excited to be jumping in all things going on in the world of geek here from your favorite buddies, the Geek Buddies. That's right. We're gonna jump into some conversations about Beetlejuice 2, get into some of the trailers of the week, talk about some Disney HULU action and what's going on with that. And we're going to take a big look at the recent issue of Empire magazine, which dropped today, diving into all things coming for Star Wars. I was able to get my hands on it and take a look at it. I sent some of the stuff to the gentleman here to read so we could have a conversation about it. So strap in for that. But let's introduce ourselves for those of you who may be new to the show. I am the Outlaw John Rocha, writer, producer, and host here on the Geek Buddies.
I am Michael Vogel. I'm a writer and producer of animated TV shows and movies.
And this is Shannon McClung. I'm a television actor and an animation writer, where you can see some of our current work on Netflix right now with Strawberry Shortcake, Barry in the Big City, seasons 1 and 2.
There you go. And real quick, Michael, what have you watched anything this week that you can recommend to the Geek Buddies fans to watch?
Am I supposed to have? Did we talk about this
I'm
ahead
just
of time?
throwing it out
Did
there,
I
man.
miss? Did I miss a meeting? Did I miss a meeting?
sorry.
What am I doing?
What are you
I've been
currently watching?
What am I currently watching? This was a big catch-up week for me, so I actually caught up on 1923 on Paramount Plus, and I caught the latest episode of Ted Lasso, which I know you boys are talking about on the weekly, and I caught up on Marvelous Miss Maisel, which might not be a geeky show, but it's certainly a show that I very much am in love with. And I think that's the main stuff that I have watched that is new. I did introduce Mr. McClung to the first 2 episodes of Star Trek Picard Season 3. Although Shannon is not a Star Trek guy, I think Season 3 of Picard is good enough that it warrants a McClung viewing. So I got him to watch those.
Good.
But yeah, that's the main stuff. Other than that, I've been playing a lot of Jedi Survivor and getting my ass kicked by some very, very big aliens and monsters. Not stormtroopers, though, and not battle droids. They're easy and fun to fight. But the bigger things, they mess with me.
I'll let that alone. Shannon McClung, your thought. What have you been watching or diving into this week?
So this is a show that's probably about a year old, but my wife and I have been going through Gaslit, which was a Starz series about some of the, the Watergate happenings. And at the same time, I watched the first episode on HBO Max of White House Plumbers, which is also about the Watergate break-in. So it's very interesting. I'm going back and forth on IMDb. All right, who's this guy? Oh, you're that guy. Who's this gal? Oh, you're that gal. So that's been fun. Aside from watching most of 2 episodes, Vogel and I had
his eyes got a little heavy. He was overserved at the gay bar I took him to for happy hour, so his eyes got a little heavy by the end of the 2nd episode.
Well, we ordered some delicious food, and by the end, one character who I thought was in a stasis coma, I opened my eyes and like, oh, you're back. Oh, how long was I out? But I also started watching. I'm not through the first episode, but I started watching Silo on Apple, which stars Rebecca Ferguson, David Oyelowo, Rashida Jones, Tim Robbins. Tim Robbins playing a role that is like the ultimate IT dickhead. And like, again, I'm only about halfway through it. But along with that, I mean, every week we're reviewing Succession, taking in Ted Lasso. Schmigadoon season 2, that finished last week, and that was Schmicago, which was very, very funny. So if you're in the mood for some comedy or some funny musical theater, check out Schmicago.
Right on.
I gotta catch up on Schmigadoon. I want to catch Silo. I actually read the book it's based on, so I'm curious to see how that adaptation goes. It was a pretty fun book. I didn't finish the series, but the first book was a good one.
Right, fair point. But you also watched Still, right, Shannon? The
oh my gosh, yes.
Okay.
So Still, that is the Michael J. Fox documentary on Apple. My wife and I, we watched Ted Lasso, and then we watched that documentary last night.
God.
So it's like, all right, let's get our tear ducts worked out. Really, really wonderful documentary. Just taking us, Michael J. Fox is the guy. He takes us through the early part of his career, the rocket ship that he got on with Back to the Future, and ultimately through his diagnosis of Parkinson's, and basically how that has affected his day-to-day life. And it's so funny looking back, thinking about the streak that he was on with Back to the Future, even to a degree, Teen Wolf. Secret of My
love Teen Wolf. I love Teen Wolf.
Good film.
But yeah, I mean, just he was so in the he was one of Hollywood's golden boys.
Yeah,
and
he was in the zone for a little bit.
Yeah, and then just seeing what happened as a result of this this terrible disease. But really, it's a tough watch, but it's a good one.
It's an hour and 35 minutes. It's up there on Apple TV now. It just debuted this morning. Or last night, I guess, into this morning. And so, yeah, it's a quick 95 minutes. Y'all should watch it. Definitely. I'm going to have a review of it later, but it's so good and moving and touching, for sure. I'm currently going back a little bit, about a year. We're watching the Ipcris file, which is on AMC Plus. Awesome little 6-episode miniseries based on the book there. And also the film that came out back in the 70s is with Joe Cole from Peaky Blinders. And I can't remember the actress's name, but the actress who played the main love interest in Sing Street, she plays his counter, and Tom Hollander is in this one as well. So a good little British film, series. But the problem is they've got a bunch of British actors playing American. Woof, man. Usually I'm criticizing American actors doing British accents, but man, when a British actor does a terrible American accent, it is rough, son. It is rough to listen to sometimes. There's a rocket that is being launched here. What? It's just so it just assaults your ears in so many ways. So yeah, that's the only negative thing I would say there. And yeah, catching up on Ted Lasso as well. I've been doing, and shamefully, I'll tell you this: Lopez versus Lopez. Watching every week, the lady and I watching Lopez versus Lopez. What can I tell you? We enjoy that stupid show. But anyway, definitely next week's going to be a lot more. So I got Fast X screenings. Next week's going to be big. A lot of screenings coming on. So can't wait for it to start ramping up. Bit of a chill week this week. So, nice. All right, we're going to get into this. The way this works is usually each of us brings up a news item. We talk about it amongst ourselves, take a break in between the news items, then a bigger break and talk about our main event item or our main topic. And our main topic is that Star Wars coverage, 20 pages on the Empire magazine. So, Michael, I think you're kicking things off. What do you got?
I am. Well, say his name 3 times. Beetlejuice, 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 because Beetlejuice is back. Tim Burton is about to start shooting Beetlejuice 2, a sequel that has been rumored for years and now looks like it is actually happening. It has a release date. It is coming out September 6, 2024, which is the date that Blade, the Blade, which we will hopefully we'll see one day from Marvel,
yeah,
but we're not going to see it on September 6th. So at least we get a little consolation prize, but not a lot's known about the movie. We know Michael Keaton is back as Beetlejuice. We know that Winona Ryder is back as Lydia Dietz. We know that Catherine O'Hara is back as Delia Dietz. We know that Justin Theroux is coming in as a new character. We know that Jenna Ortega, in the most obvious casting in the world, but boy, does it make a ton of sense. Jenna Ortega will be playing Winona Ryder's daughter. And we know that Monica Bellucci looks like she is coming in to play Beetlejuice's wife.
What?
Yeah. So not a lot's known, but Tim Burton, Tim Burton, this was when Tim Burton's streak really was hitting its peak. Like Tim Burton back in the day, Pee-wee's Big Adventure, Beetlejuice, Edward Scissorhands, like this was the Tim Burton era. Now Tim Burton after that has had some wins, has had some misses. So him coming back to Beetlejuice after all these years, really interesting. I mean, the real question is, and this is always the question is it a good story or not? So we know we've got Beetlejuice's wife. We know we've got Lydia's daughter. We know we've got Catherine O'Hara in it, which is always a plus in my book. But gentlemen, what do you think? Are we feeling good about Michael Keaton returning to this role? Are we feeling weird about it? Are we feeling cautiously optimistic? What do you think?
Shannon?
Because of the involvement of Michael Keaton, that's the one that kind of makes me optimistic for the project. I mean, obviously getting a sequel to a fantastic 80s comedy years later, that really kind of cemented Michael Keaton as like that. This was not just Tim Burton's streak. This was Michael Keaton's. This is right before Batman. So knowing that he wants to come back, looking at the projects that he has picked in the wake of his Oscar nomination, Michael Keaton has made a lot of really strong choices from Spotlight, from Dope Sick, coming back as Batman for the Flash.
Yeah, I mean, and it sounds like from everything we're hearing about the Flash, you could have looked at that as Michael Keaton just taking the paycheck, but apparently it's fucking great. So
the idea that he's on board, fantastic. I do agree that the casting of Jenna Ortega is a little on the nose. But that being said, it makes sense.
Yeah.
I gotta tell you, it's one of those that like, you're like, this is so on the nose that I would be annoyed about it, except that it is so perfect that you can't deny it. Like, it is just like, she is the spiritual daughter of Lydia Dietz from Beetlejuice in Wednesday. Like it is, they're the same. It's the same thing. So you're like, yeah, no, I get it.
Yeah.
And I imagine that they don't have that there's no inclination to make like Otho needs a son or a nephew or whatever. But I'm like, Justin Theroux in sort of an Otho type role, I'm like, comedically that makes a lot of sense. The release date is a little interesting. September 6th, the weekend after Labor Day. It's like, okay, that's not traditionally a real big weekend. So I'm surprised that they wouldn't go for like an August release date, something that is known to have kind of some of your more high concept comedies. But again, I mean, that team getting back together. Tim Burton, I agree. His last at bat for a feature was Dumbo, I believe. So yeah. Yeah,
which by the way, had Michael Keaton in it.
That's true. Not as the lead.
Yes.
I'm just saying.
Thank you, Johnny.
Just saying.
He's had his hits. He's had his misses. Hopefully, the return of the ghost with the most. Hopefully, this will be a hit.
Johnny, what do you think?
Yeah, well, I mean, we broke this news on the hot mic, if I can toot our own horn a little bit, and this was confirmed now. So it was confirmed, it's done. I mean, Jeff had the Jenna Ortega piece of the puzzle. And the reason is because Jenna feels like this ascension of her status now as a celebrity and actress and star is due to being on Wednesday. So it's almost like, I owe you, let me do this. And you're right, Michael, spiritual successor makes all the sense in the world. They got to find a role or a cameo for Aubrey Plaza. Maybe she's an aunt or something. That would be great to have, a teacher or who knows, but that would be great to have them because they have such great similar energy as we saw. But I love that Michael Keaton's coming back. I recently watched a clip of an interview with him and Charlie Rose, and he talks about how he found the character of Beetlejuice. Now he turned it down and turned it down and turned it down. This is a recent interview. And then said he talked to the costumer, and it was in the conversation with the costumer that he discovered the character and realized what it was. So certainly there's a lot of love here to bring the energy back, and it's the right time, as you said, Michael. I mean, he's coming back as Batman. It's a Keaton-sance. People are back in love with Michael Keaton again. It's not that he ever really went away. He just wasn't leading projects like he had before, but there was still fun stuff like that, like the other guys. He's had these great little pieces, and he was good in Dumbo, even if Dumbo itself wasn't that good of a movie.
Jack Frost. Am I right?
Yeah, I'm going to leave that alone. But yes, there were other things where he's popped up. Dope Sick, which he was incredible in Dope Sick.
He was great.
People fall back in love with Michael Keaton and want to see him, and so it makes a lot of sense. Love that Catherine O'Hara is back. No surprise Jeffrey Jones isn't back. And no surprise that Alec Baldwin or Gina Davis isn't back at this point. Justin Theroux is going to be real interesting. Is he the dad? What is his role in all of this? Be very curious. You need someone who doesn't believe in this stuff. So maybe Theroux is the guy that doesn't believe in this stuff, like Jeffrey Jones and Catherine O'Hara were in the past, because certainly Catherine believes now by the end of the first Beetlejuice. The Bellucci part of this is real interesting to me, okay? Like, is this Michael Keaton's like, you know what? I'm not coming back until you get like Monica Bellucci to play my wife. I would love to see what the negotiations, what the thought pattern is. But that being said, Monica can radiate the goth thing. Certainly, we saw her playing like the leather-clad stuff and the darker edges stuff in the Matrix movies, and we've seen her play comedy. She's certainly done incredible drama. So it's a good actress to be a part of this, and so it'll be fun to see if she's legitimately married to him because she cares about him and loves Beetlejuice, if she's a companion in all of this, or if she fell down the Lydia hole and no one saved her, so she had to be married to Beetlejuice. is that a conflict in the movie? So a lot here that I'm excited about for sure.
And really quick, as far as story goes, I mean, the Wednesday of it all, Miles Millar and Al Gow, who wrote Wednesday, wrote the screenplay for this. So if you liked Wednesday and you liked the vibe of it, expect more of the same here. So I think that's a plus in Beetlejuice 2's favor. You know, there's Beetlejuice is the bad guy in the movie, but then the cartoon came along later, and I have a lot of friends who were younger than me who saw the cartoon before they saw the movie and just thought Beetlejuice was the good guy. Is this Beetlejuice was bad, but his wife is worse? Is that the plot? You know, is there a oh, you thought Beetlejuice was trouble? Well, get ready, because here comes Mrs. Juice. So I don't know. You know, it could go either way. I do think Justin Theroux is probably, you are right, Jeffrey Jones will not be reprising his role. But maybe Catherine O'Hara's traded up for a younger husband. Maybe Catherine O'Hara, maybe he is the new Otho. Maybe he is. So, you know, I think that you sort of see a lot of possibilities here. It's a strong cast across the board. Good writing team. Tim Burton going back to his roots. I'm going to say that until we see the first trailer for this, I'm going to mark this in the I'm excited pile. Now, once we see the trailer, I might change my mind. But for now, I'm in the I'm excited pile.
Now, let's flash forward. You know, a year or so when we get to see this movie, and it is a huge hit, and they announce a third chapter. Will they call it Threeteljuice?
Oh my God.
No.
That was a lot of work for that ending.
You really, like, you were climbing up the mountain for that one.
You know, at one point, I actually forgot the punchline.
Yeah.
There was so much setup.
Are you sure?
Yeah. All right, guys, I got a good one. Hold on. I'm going to get there in a minute. Oh, God, I'm going to get there. Oh. All right. Well, Beetlejuice will be here on September 6th, 2024, which will apparently be before the punchline to some of Shannon's jokes.
Oh, hello. Well, I mean,
this has all been set up. This is all one long setup.
Depending on the writer's strike. Yeah, we'll see what happens. But all right, so quick break. We'll jump into some more stuff right after this. That's good. That's a good one. Yeah, good catch. I was like,
wonderful theme. Hopefully Danny Elfman's coming back.
Oh yeah, Danny good.
You kind of got to. You kind of have to, man.
Right. Danny looks scary, man. He's in fantastic shape for a guy. And have you seen those abs? Jesus Christ, Danny. All right. Anyway, let's move on to some Disney news here. This was announced. Bob Iger did this recently on a call here. They announced that on this investor call that they are going to cut some content from Disney Plus and Hulu, and they are going to add. They're going to essentially put Hulu and Disney Plus into the same app. They're going to combine them into one app experience, is what he called it. Very similar to what we're seeing now going on with HBO Max, becoming the Max, combining HBO stuff and Discovery stuff into one particular app. But this is interesting because Disney recently lost more than 2 million subscribers. This was on Wednesday. They announced this, which was their first significant drop in clients since 2019. So certainly we're seeing possibly the end or the slow death of streaming services. It seems like that's what it feels. As more and more of these are getting combined and the prices are going up, because he also announced that the price was going to go up once these two apps were combined. And certainly we've seen ads where they've been pitching you can get Verizon and you'll get Disney and Hulu and ESPN all thrown in. So the idea of combining the apps together as where you can have all three apps as opposed to all into one certainly is an interesting new step for them to be doing that, to put them all into one. But yeah, this is clearly driven by the lack of sub growth here. And so I got to ask you guys, do you like this idea that Disney Plus and Hulu, because it seemed like they were trying to sell Hulu almost right after they bought it, couldn't really find any buyers for it, which I think also speaks to the issues with streaming services. But now they're combining into one app. Do you guys like this idea? And what kind of content do you think they're going to cut? Because this is the quote: "We realized that we made a lot of content that is not necessarily driving sub growth, and we're getting much more surgical about what it is we make. So as we look to reduce content spend, we're looking to reduce it in a way that should not have any impact at all on subs." So this almost feels like a YouTube channel They're saying, what's the content that people are watching? Let's make more of that and cut out this other stuff that we're not. So what are y'all's reactions to this?
You know, it seems like it's a little bit of a strategic retreat. That, you know, now they're kind of like, okay, maybe streaming is, you will reach a saturation point in terms of how many people are subscribing, and maybe putting everything on one spot. That actually is great for the consumer, but for the business, it's like, oh, okay, so you pay, you know, $15 a month, you have access to every Marvel film. You have access to every Star Wars film. You have access to every Pixar film. I think they may have realized, like, ooh, maybe this business-wise, you know, it was great for the moment.
Yeah.
Especially during 2020 when, you know, we couldn't go anywhere. But now it's like, yeah, that's not, we're kind of giving away a lot for free right now. I mean, you know, we all remember back in the 80s and the 90s when they would release they would do a limited release of a classic animated film. And it's like, okay, you have this much time to buy it. And then it's going back in the Disney vault. Who knows when we'll see it again? Yeah. So, you know, it's not a surprise, like, especially with Disney Plus, like, you look at a lot of the content that they have made. If it's not Marvel or Star Wars, a lot of that stuff that they've put out has not done that well. I mean, you look at the National Treasure series, like, I'm a fan of that franchise. I couldn't get through the pilot. You look at the Willow series. I don't think anyone's, you know, clamoring for a second season of that. So it's weird. Like, the idea that they're also potentially going to merge those two, I don't know. For me, it's diluting the Disney brand. Yeah. That you have all of this stuff that you would potentially find on Hulu now on Disney Plus. I'm not sure. Again, I'm not an economics guy, so I can't tell you like if this is a good decision or a bad decision. As an audience member, I'm kind of like, that kind of sucks. That potentially it's like, oh, you know what? You don't get to watch Hawkeye until December. You don't get to watch, you know, The Mandalorian until this month. So I don't necessarily know that's the exact decisions they're going to make, but yeah, it's really interesting. It'll be curious to see. I mean, we're kind of in a brave new world right now.
Yeah, Mike, they're talking about $1.5 to $1.8 billion of an impairment charge. This is what CFO Christine McCarthy said on the call itself, and they said they're going to remove this content on their streaming platforms. It's very similar to what Warner Brothers did with Batgirl. So, and other Max productions, you saw them cut that, like, really pissed off a lot of people who had been watching this stuff or were mad about it. Hulu does a lot of R-rated stuff. FX puts their stuff there. Films are on there that are R-rated. Do you think this is Disney moving forward? Or do you think they'll cut that R-rated stuff like Boston Strangler on Disney Plus? I mean, what do you think is going to happen on all of this in this combination when they make it one app? Do you like this idea? And what's your opinion?
Well, Disney already, I mean, everybody was afraid that Disney wasn't going to put the Punisher on Disney Plus. They were not going to put Deadpool on Disney Plus. They're not going to put this, and they did. So I think this whole idea that Disney has to remain like G and PG rated, I think, has already gone out the window. So I don't think that's an issue. And actually, internationally, it's already a non-issue. Like, we deal with this here, but when you go to another country, you know, you want to watch Prey, it's on Disney Plus. So I don't think that this idea that people are so precious with the Disney brand and it needs to be a thing is actually in the day-to-day life of a consumer an issue. Look, Hulu has no identity. Hulu hasn't had an identity for a while. So at first people thought Hulu was going to be, oh, well, this is where grown-up stuff is going to be and Disney's going to be, but that ended up not really being the case. But what Hulu does have that Disney Plus doesn't have is, because it's taking all of the things that are airing on FX and other networks. You know, I go to Hulu to watch What We Do in the Shadows. I go to Hulu to watch the latest episode of Abbott Elementary. And Disney Plus doesn't always have a lot of those. So it really depends on what they're going to get rid of. I think collapsing both of these into one streaming service actually makes sense, because there's a lot of garbage on both of these services. Yeah. Like, both of these services have good stuff, but there's a lot of fat to trim. And I think, you know, I know everyone's afraid that we're going to like start putting all the Disney animated features and Pixar features in the vault, and you're going to have to like wait, and they're going to make a big deal out of, oh, Toy Story 3 is back. Oh, the Toy Story movies are back before Toy Story 5. And like, I think that would be a mistake. I think a lot of people would get upset by that. They might do it. If they do, I think it's a bad decision. But I think like the Star Wars movies, the Marvel movies, the Star Wars and Marvel TV series, the Disney and Pixar animated films, I think that all does well for them. I think a lot of the other stuff, like Shannon said, a lot of the original things that they've done outside of that, I don't think have driven massive growth. So I think taking the best of what Disney Plus has and the best of what Hulu has and saying, let's just have the best of the best on one platform is probably a good idea. That I'd be willing to pay. You know, I'm paying for Hulu and Disney Plus right now. So let me get rid of one, put two together, charge me a little bit more. Like, this all makes sense. Now, if they start like taking away the stuff that's really popular to try and like get us, you know, to try and like get more subscribers to do, I think that's going to be a mistake. So it really is depending on like what's getting cut.
Right. Yeah. It's going to be curious to hear what's getting cut. Because obviously there are going to be people who are like, I love that show or I love that movie. Why is it getting cut? And blah, blah, blah. But that's the game. That's the game. You know,
there is like, look, I love Disney Plus. It's like, you know, I like as far as my geekdom goes, like Disney, Marvel, Star Wars, Pixar is pretty much up there as like, you know, like that's the, so like it's where all my favorite things sit. And I'm glad that I can go watch them whenever I want. But you start scrolling beyond those things on Disney Plus and some of like the really good Disney animated TV shows from Disney TV Animation and stuff, like you start going a little bit deeper and you really quickly get to, I don't need this. Like there's a bunch of like live action Disney movies from the 90s and early 2000s that like I think if they all just went away, a lot of people would be like, you know, like I loved Homeward Bound, the remake when it came out. If it went away for a while, I'd be okay.
This guy. But do you think this also will, as a follow-up question to you guys, do you think this also will make Disney more hesitant on the stuff they create specifically for Hulu or for Disney Plus because of how they've seen the numbers? Like something Seth Rogen brought up recently in his red carpet premiere for his show, Platonic with Rose Byrne. He's straight up called out Apple TV at the, you know, at the event and said, you know, this writer strike situation is such a problem for me because essentially, I'm saying this paraphrasing, essentially these executives might be making a crap ton of money that we don't know about because they won't release streaming numbers. And that's the thing that I think at the end of the day is people just want the information. We want to know why you're cutting certain shows. What's the Moon Girl one that's out? What if they cut Moon Girl and you're like, why? And we don't know why. They just cut it. And then there's all these accusations, oh, this is racism or whatever. And the way to curtail that is to show the numbers. Just show the numbers. And I wonder if this thinning down of the streaming services will finally force these studios to reveal the numbers. Because even Dexter Fletcher in an interview for Ghosted said, I had to cut certain things or manipulate my movie because Apple TV came at me with the metrics and they told me this is the kind of thing that you have to do for a movie on Apple TV streaming versus a movie in theatrical. And they were right, because apparently I broke records with my movie dropping that weekend, even though the critics destroyed it. So what do you guys think about that? Do you think that will happen?
Maybe. I mean, I think this whole like streaming services not releasing any information, like when we've lived in an era, like we've grown up in, we know what the TV networks, we know what the numbers are, we know what the box office is for movies. So this whole streaming, like don't pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. Like at a certain point, you're like, why? Like what is it that you're keeping from us that is so crazy that you just don't want to let it? Like it just seems silly. Yeah, it'll be interesting. I think streaming is going to go through a whole. It's really funny because, you know, like a year or so ago when it was like streaming is going to change the landscape, like streaming is going to change everything. Nobody's going to go to the movie theaters ever again. Like the networks are dead. Movie theaters are dead. Everything is streaming. And now you see streaming scrambling to kind of fit into it. It's like, no, the system is the system. And the system has been the system for a long time. And so I think whether it's like revealing more information, doing things. And I think also, you know, to your first question, yes, they should be a little bit more careful about what they're making. Okay. The Netflix model of let's spend all this money and 60% of it's going to be garbage, but the 40% that's good is really going to drive it is a terrible model. Like it doesn't work. So, you know, they're going to continue making the Star Wars stuff. They're going to continue making the Marvel stuff on Disney Plus, but like, yeah, maybe with the other things that they're making, the original movies, the original TV shows that they're making, maybe be a little bit more choiceful.
Okay. Shannon, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think Ghosted was a fun idea with two very miscast leads. To the not sharing the numbers, I wonder if you're a stockholder, for instance, like I own Disney stock. I've never done a ton of research on what it is, but I'm kind of like, as a stockholder, don't you have a right to know certain things like this? So going forward, I'll be really interested to see if that happens. And yeah, I think combining two things, there is going to be, as Vogel said, trimming the fat, but also I think they are going to be a little more wary about what goes forward, because the amount of stuff that comes out and is just so bad. Like I'd be curious to know on the executive level, who's the one who said yes to this? Because maybe you're in the wrong position.
I mean, that's a fair point. You know, we need to take a look at that.
Listen, we all know executives. We are friends with executives. I know lots of executives, and there are some really good ones. And there are a lot of them that should not be in that position. Like, that is just like, that is.
That's true. I think that goes for every walk of life, for sure. All right,
we have at least 3 friends who I'm going to get texts from as soon as this thing airs and be like, which one am I? Which one am I?
Tell the truth.
All of you right now listening, yes, I know you're about to text me.
So we'll keep tabs on this, and we'll see what the end result's going to be and how much they'll increase the price. Because I mean, Disney Plus is really good price for the amount of content that you get. So be very curious. Hope it's not more than $2 or $3 for sure, but we'll see. All right, let's take a quick break, and we'll jump into some news from Shannon McClung right after this. That's good. I like that.
I was going to try to do an off-key version of it. But I just have perfect pitch. I don't know what to tell you. Anyway, so we got trailers. 3 projects coming out in the next 3 months. We're going to start with one that Mr. Vogel watched the trailer to right before we started, and he's totally jazzed about. It's called The Meg 2, The Trench. So if you saw the original Meg with Jason Statham a few summers ago, you're like, what can we do to the shark movie? What else can we do? And granted, this is based on a book. It's like, make it enormous. And it's like, okay, Jason Statham won the day. He defeated the enormous shark. What can we do now? Like, a bunch of them, a bunch of enormous sharks. And let's lean into the thing that probably made the first film a success, was sort of the sillier aspect. So this one is directed by Ben Wheatley, who, if you all saw Free Fire a few years ago, great little contained action ing almost. He's back directing this one. We've got some new cast members with Jing Woo. Cliff Curtis is coming back. Like, this movie, this falls into that snakes on a plane category, where it's like, this is absolutely ridiculous, but based off of what we see in the trailer, some of the reactions to people at the giant sharks and perhaps some other deep sea creatures that are making their way to the surface, you see, like, okay, we're going for kind of a sillier fun thing here. And if there's one person in Hollywood who can kick a shark in the face and make it count, it's Jason Statham. So, Mikey, let's start with you. What did you think of our first look at The Meg 2, The Trench?
Listen, I didn't even watch it because I wasn't a big fan of The Meg, but then I watched the trailer because I knew we were going to review it, and I was like, you know what? I'm in. I love a movie. Like, I love really good movies. And I also love movies that know what they are and lean into it, which is what this seems to be. What I don't love is when a movie tries to be a big, awesome, amazing movie and it's really ridiculous. Jurassic World, I'm looking at you. Wow. But like this is just pure silliness. I mean, this is a bunch of giant sharks. When you had that couple in the paddle boat drinking their giant drinks with a giant shark coming after them and they start paddling the paddle boat faster, I'm like, I'm on board for this comedy. I'm gonna have, this is a 3 rosé movie. This was a 3 rosé movie and I'm here for it.
Yeah, I mean, look, just the opening of Jason Statham doing unnecessary pull-ups in the dark and then walking out into the light. I know exactly what I'm getting. Okay, this isn't Ben Affleck doing pull-ups in Argo unnecessarily. This film understands what it is, and I love that. And so I did not like the first one that much. I thought Rainn Wilson was horribly miscast, and I thought it took itself too seriously. This clearly does not. This is 3 megalodons roaming and killing at random, and apparently there's a break in the breach. And who knows? And they said this in the trailer. We don't know what came out of it, but clearly there are tentacles ripping helicopters out of the sky. There are people poor people being attacked in their little inflatables. We're seeing blood all over the place. So, and influencers getting bit out of windows. So to me, I'm 100% on board with this. If it's a fun, turn your brain off, have some fun kills, enjoy Jason Statham saying the stuff that he does, and in humor with a tongue firmly planted in his cheek, I'm 100% on board with this. And as you said, Shannon, you got a good director. Ben Wheatley, that Free Fire film is a good film. Rebecca, Buddy's a good director, okay? All good directors have bad films. So I want to see what he can do with something like this. Can he kind of elevate the material, for lack of a better term, and have you enjoy a surprising hit, which we have seen happen over the last few years a few times.
Listen,
so I'm down with it.
This is giving me Jaws 3 vibes.
Oof.
And I
don't say that.
I love, hey, Jaws, one of the biggest movies from one of the biggest directors. It's a classic film. What are we going to do for the third one? What if the sharks got loose in SeaWorld? Like, that's what this is. And I'm like, you know what? I'm in.
In 3D. I really want to hear Jason Statham say, let's put a pause on Jaws. And when this came up, I wonder why it didn't say the Megs and have the S turn around and make it 2. Anyways, the Meg 2, The Trench, comes out on August 4th. So in a very stark departure for our next film, we get the third trailer for Oppenheimer. Maybe not going for the same crowd as the Meg 2, but this is we've gotten to thus far. We're seeing more of this is Christopher Nolan. We're seeing more of Cillian Murphy's J. Robert Oppenheimer. We're seeing more of this cast, more of like what actually happened in the build up to building the atomic bomb. I mean, this just looks this has Academy Awards bait all over it. And as one who likes Nolan, hasn't always loved all the choices that he's made. Many folks in the comments the last time I mentioned Dunkirk that I was not a big Dunkirk fan. A lot of people came for me being like, well, you didn't understand how the story's linked up. I'm like, yeah, fair enough. I didn't get it.
Sure. That's what the problem was.
This one is almost giving me kind of Memento vibes just from a visual aesthetic, that you've got, one part in time, the past taking place in color, the future taking place in black and white. I think this looks fantastic. By this point, if you're not into the movie, I don't think this trailer is going to move the needle, but I imagine most folks are interested in this. What do y'all think? Johnny, let's start with you. Our third look at Oppenheimer.
Yeah, I did my reaction to it on Monday. I woke up and I was like, oh, this I can't wait to watch this. And I watched it and I thought this was genius because it's an interesting time to release a movie like this in the middle of summer movie season. It's a really interesting decision. Is it counter programming to all the tentpole pictures that we're going to get, like the Meg or whatever? Is it a counter programming type of thing? And so what did this trailer do? Where the previous teaser and trailers were much more serious about this, the fire and Emily Blunt's voice. The first half of this trailer plays like a suspense thriller. Like, it is just like, people got to move here. The family's got to come. We're going to do this. Do you know what you're doing? Yes, I think we're going to get this. We're going to change the world. Do you want to come be a part of it? Matt Damon overacting in that moment. Change the world. We're getting that vibe. And then, boom, the thing happens. And as you said, it goes to black and white, and it's much more serious, much more Oscar baity type of things. And I think that if that's the decision Nolan makes in this movie, it is brilliant. Because after that explosion, after the bomb happens, after all those people were killed or murdered, depending on your perspective there in Japan, certainly the idea completely changed. And maybe it's black and white because things are more starker. Maybe things are more clearer to him about what he's done versus the people who are on board with nuclear weapons and whatever, and he sees the horror of them. So to me, I think it was really smart to get people on board to feel the thriller aspect of it all, but then really fool them that it's actually going to be a little more serious than they, or a lot more serious actually than they think. So I thought this looked great, and all the cast it's just top to bottom. I mean, Jack Quaid's in there for 3 seconds. It's great actors. Florence Pugh doesn't even say a word. She's only in for one scene. You've got a great cast. So I'm very, very excited for this one. And I like the trailer. Mike?
All I thought about watching this trailer is Christopher Nolan is a very intense man. like every Christopher Nolan movie with his Hans Zimmer score, like those Hans Zimmer just like soundscapes of like whoa, like this man must wake up every morning just with a lot going on. I'm on board. I will support Shannon on this. Like Dunkirk doesn't really do it for me. Yes, I do understand how they all link together. It doesn't really do it for me. But I actually am probably a bigger fan of Tenet than a lot of people are. And in general, really, really like Nolan's films. So I'm already on board for this. I am excited to see what he's going to do. But it is like when you go see a Nolan movie, like you come out exhausted. Like you're like, this was a level of intense that I was not prepared for. And this looks like it's going to be a lot of that. Like to John's point, everyone is very serious. Now, granted, it's serious subject material. I would love it if Nolan did something like a fun summer romp comedy. Dumb and Dumber in the 3. Nolan's like Christopher Nolan's Dumb and Dumber, but with a Hans Zimmer score, where it's like we gotta go find this girl. I really want to see Christopher Nolan tackle something that is not Nolan-esque and just see what he does.
You know how most Nolan movies, they all use kind of that same font, and it's always like, I want to see Dumber and Dumbest. Well, Oppenheimer, again, we've said it many times, Oppenheimer is coming out this July 21st, and that brings us to the most, the closest thing that's about to come out. We got a very, very cool behind-the-scenes clip of Secret Invasion. This is the newest Marvel.
Wrong one. Sorry about that. Wrong one. This is what you're talking about. Sorry about that.
Yep.
This is good. This is great. I'm sorry. Okay, here we go. Yes, go ahead. Yes, go ahead.
This is going to come out June 21st. And yeah, this just gives us more of an idea of, what's going on in the series, how Maria Hill is kind of, minding the shop as Nick Fury has been off planet. We find out that Olivia Colman is playing an MI5 agent. This just looks, the thing that gets me excited about this is the lack of superheroes in it. The whole sort of, spy game angle of the MCU. It's sort of like a really, really, really pared down version of Winter Soldier. I mean, the moment that Martin Freeman, Everett Ross has a conversation with very much a conspiracy theorist. And it just reminded me of the Charlie Day gif from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, where we see all of the red thread connecting various stories. I looking at where the MCU is, I think a story like this is kind of perfect. That it's a section that we've not really explored, but it's also the type of story that the public, by and large, they know what happened with the blip. They know what happened with Thanos. This is something that I think they are trying to keep covered as much as they can. And I think a story like this is kind of perfect right now for the MCU. But gentlemen, I'll throw it over to you. What did we think of this behind the scenes look at Secret Invasion?
Yeah, Mikey, what do you think?
I'm so excited for this, and this just made me more excited. Like I've heard from people that it's really good, so I'm excited going on this. But B, I think we need this. I think Marvel fatigue is a real thing, and I think everyone, whether you can still love Marvel and admit you got a little bit of Marvel fatigue. I think everybody has a little bit of Marvel fatigue, and I think that watching this behind the scenes look, it really reminded me of what it was like. Like there's an ebb and flow to reading comics. And there's always this thing that happens where you're reading your big titles, you're reading your Justice League, your Avengers, your Superman, Batman, whatever, and like they kind of hit a lull where the stories aren't that great. And all of a sudden, something like a Gotham Central comes out, or something comes out that's like just off the beaten path, maybe about some characters you haven't seen in a while, with a really cool creative team, and you're like, fuck, this is great. This is what I needed. And it kind of overshadows all the bigger comic book things that you're reading. And that's what this feels like to me. I feel like Marvel made a mistake, and I was thinking about it when I was watching this. I think that with the Infinity Saga, Thanos and the Infinity Stones never overtook the other stories until we got to Infinity War. We all knew that the stones were happening. We all knew where we were going, but each move, like Captain America, Winter Soldier, Captain America Civil War, like Thor Ragnarok, like the Guardians movies, everything kind of had its own personality, its own vibe. And I feel like Marvel was getting really nervous early on when we were all like, what's going on with Phase 4? And they announced the Kang Dynasty, and then it just felt like everything became Kang multiverse, Kang multiverse, Kang multiverse. And I feel like it's overshadowed the individual stories a bit. And this, with Secret Invasion, and Guardians Volume 3, similarly, like Guardians Volume 3 felt like it was just a Guardians movie. And this feels like it's these characters, it's Everett Ross, it's Maria Hill, it's Ben Mendelsohn's Skrull, I can't remember his name. It's Nick Fury, you know, you got... it's like, let's take these characters, let's take Rhodey, let's take all these characters that aren't the headliners of the bigger things, and let's tell a really tight story about them. And it's just got me really, really stoked. I feel like this is the show. If it delivers on the way that I hope it's going to deliver, this is the show that I need right now to give me a little bit of a Marvel bump that I'm not feeling at the moment.
Yeah, this feels like the Andor of the Marvel Cinematic Universe right now. This is what it feels like. It's going to come in. It's going to be dark. It's going to be gritty. It's going to be hard. It's going to have those Winter Soldier vibes. It's going to have the more of the 70s spy thriller type situations. And Shannon, I think you make an excellent point in your analysis here, talking about this is a film that we can, or this is a series rather, that we can kind of sense is topical for our times. And yes, that scene you're talking about, where Martin Freeman's in that dilapidated room watching the dude from Game of Thrones and Fortitude tell him about the conspiracy theories. And listen, both sides of our political spectrum have conspiracy theories right now. So the idea of trying to convince somebody to believe in something like Skrulls being shape changers, when you've established that Skrulls are good people, they've helped us out, they've worked with Nick Fury, to believe that there is a sect that would want to come in and try to destroy the universe or try to become other people. And you're like, you have to question your friendship or your connection, what their motives were. I liken it to that moment where Gary Shandling, as the senator, shook the hand and said, "Hail Hydra." And you're like, oh shit, so this is the kind of thing that they're bringing back. They're going back to the basics of, as Michael, you pointed out very well as well, what was the beginnings of all of this, where we were slowly laying the seeds. And yes, we had a feeling where it might be going, but we didn't really fully know. Now they've got to kind of maybe this is a little bit of a reset here to get us back into the vibe and feeling confident that Marvel knows where it's going. This is a great behind the scenes featurette. Olivia Colman is fantastic. The fact that she was squeeing, in essence, that she is going to be part of the Marvel universe and was hassling her agent to get her into the Marvel universe speaks volumes. Having Emilia Clarke be in this, who certainly could use more banger projects on her resume after Game of Thrones. Great to have her being a part of this. And Kingsley Ben-Adir, who looks badass in this role, is great as well. So, and Michael, great, excellent point. All these ground-based people, he's essentially putting together a mini Avengers team of people without superpowers, even though Rhodey can use the suit. That's not his superpower. To kind of explore and investigate all of this. So I love it.
And this isn't Rhodey War Machine. This is Rhodey, the politician.
Politician.
Right, politician. And they keep teasing, and good to see Colby. And look, I haven't always been the biggest fan of Colby as Maria Hill, but in this trailer, man, she looks good. She looks ready. She looks in charge of the situation. What's her role going to be in all of this? Is anyone going to die from this crew of people, which I think is in play in this kind of a situation? And they keep teasing that we're not ready for the changes that they're going to make to the Marvel universe. So as Michael, as you said, this may be the perfect time for a series like this to come out and reawaken us and fall back in love with Marvel and see the stakes that they're willing to take, or the decisions they're willing to take, and the stakes that they're willing to throw out there for people to consume. So yeah, it was a good one.
Well, and also to add to that, Johnny, this is Everett Ross on the run. I mean,
Right,
you know,
yes,
he got busted out by the Wakandans
Right.
at the end of Wakanda Forever, but we can see like he's back in the US. So yeah, I think the show, hopefully this is going to be just a really, really solid piece of grown-up MCU entertainment. And we're going to find out on June 21st.
Just keep Valentina away from it. All right. Anyway, are we anything else more to say on this, or are we good?
That is it.
All right, there we go. That's our trailers. We're gonna jump into our main topic here right after this.
Do, do, do.
I love that thing. All right, let's get into it. Empire Magazine, the British film magazine over there, dropped a new issue of their magazine that is exploring all these big films that are coming out, including what we just talked about in terms of series Secret Invasion, Mission Impossible 7. But they have set aside a 20-page spread to talk about all the stuff coming out for Star Wars. They have new interviews with Kathleen Kennedy, Dave Filoni, the cast of Skeleton Crew, the Andor cast, and the Acolyte cast, all talking about what all their series are going to be. And a number of things are sticking out here. There are some comments that Kathleen Kennedy makes about Rian Johnson, saying that trilogy is apparently still in play. And it's just that Ryan gets so successful. We're still talking all the time, but he's getting more and more successful. But it's still there. Taika Waititi's a film is still in play. A lot of people were speculating that's pretty much done after they announced those 3 films, and Taika's wasn't one of them. And she also talked about bringing Rey back and bringing these films back and what they're going for, what they're looking for, how Rey is doing this. This is 15 years after the rise of Skywalker that we're picking this film up. So yes, an older Rey, not a 60-year-old Rey, but certainly an older Rey. What's that aspect going to be in this film? And also they talked more with Leslie Headland about the Acolyte, and essentially it's almost like they're solving crimes across the universe. They even quoted, like, they made a comment that it might be CSI Jedi. So that's an interesting aspect. Jude Law spoke about how it's a darker edge series in the Acolyte, in Skeleton Crew, and it's got the Amblin-esque vibes to it, which I know appeals to my 2 fellow geek buddies there. And Andor coming in is going to be in 3-episode chunks again, and the last chunk is going to be the 5 days leading up right before the beginning of Rogue One. So a lot of tightrope walking with all of these projects, but a lot more information here. What did you guys think about the stuff that was revealed here from everybody who was interviewed? Oh, and we had more with Katie Sackhoff as well, talking about Bo-Katan and the Mandalorian. Gentlemen.
I mean, the thing that really stuck out to me was the brief bit with Andy Serkis.
Yeah.
Where the presumption at the end of that episode of Andor was that Kino Loy was didn't make it out.
Drowned.
And the presumption that we were not going to be going back to that prison, but now it seems like based off of what he says, like, that place can be very lonely when you're by yourself. It's like, oh, awesome. So Kino Loy is not off the table. And then talking about the potential Snoke connection, where he kind of walks something back and immediately apologizes to Disney. I thought, like, no, there's no way. No.
I mean,
but
he was joking.
A lot of fun.
He was joking there.
I hope he was joking.
He was joking on the Snoking.
Tone can be a difficult thing to ascertain in print. But also, like, I liked hearing a little bit more about Skeleton Crew. Like, that's one of the shows that we have not heard a ton about. And hearing the idea that it is Jude Law with, a group of kids, and how his approach just as an actor, that there were times that, like, yes, this has younger cast members, but one of the things that made Amblin so successful back in the day is they didn't view what they were doing as kids movies. They were doing as movies that had kids in them. Right. So his responsibility as sort of the German actor on the set, the lead guy, how he kind of had to set the emotional tone, and how he would come in a little more serious sometimes, and the kids weren't sure, like, is Jude in a bad mood? It's like, no, we have to get the tone set for some of these scenes, because this is a dangerous world that these characters are living in. I thought that was super, super cool.
Cool. Michael, what stood out to you? And Shannon, you were kind of breaking up a little bit. Did you hear that, Michael, as well?
Oh, yeah, no, he sounded like a droid.
Oh yeah, so you might.
You're giving us some serious protocol droid vibes. You gonna clean that up?
Yeah,
so it's kind of like a droid, deliberate.
Yeah, yeah, did yes, very much so. You might have to go out and come back in, Shannon, but go ahead, Michael. Keep going.
I'll be right back.
Okay.
Yeah, it's really great. I mean, like, look, I'm so excited for Ahsoka, and reading about just Rosario Dawson, Mary Elizabeth Winstead, and Natasha Liu Bordizzo being excited and all the training they did. This idea that Sabine Wren has been doing a lot of lightsaber training, that she's going to be wielding a lightsaber. Really interesting. And I like what Rosario Dawson said. Like, she kind of made it really clear. She's like, we're going full throttle Ahsoka. She's like, this isn't just a couple mentions of this or a little Easter egg here or a little like line that I said to Luke. This is full throttle into Ahsoka's story. So I thought that was really great. And also, as just a fun aside, I'm excited that the guys who made the team that made the Grogu puppet have made the Lothcat puppet.
Yes.
And that the Lothcat is not CG, but the Lothcat is a puppet that everyone is freaking out about, and I am very excited for a practical effects Lothcat. I think the thing that I'm really most excited, I mean, all the articles are great. Like, it's really, if you're a Star Wars fan, it's worth it to go out to the store and just pick up this issue of Empire Magazine. Everything is really good. I am very excited about Acolyte. After reading, I was excited about Acolyte before, but I'm really excited about it now. You know, the team, they talked about that they've said this before. We've heard this at Star Wars Celebration, that the vibe is very Kill Bill meets Frozen, but they elaborated on that a little bit, meaning that Frozen kind of took the Snow Queen, which was a story about a villain, and with Frozen, sort of, we got into Elsa's perspective. It was like, let's not make the Snow Queen the villain. Let's get into like what's going on here. And so as we're looking at this whole era where it's the High Republic, the Jedi are at their peak. The Republic is at its peak. Like, this is the golden age of the Republic, and the Sith are gone. There's no bad guys. And how do we get from here to Palpatine being at the head of the Republic in the government? And like saying that the Sith are at their weakest right now. And so kind of getting into who they are and what they're about, and maybe humanizing the Sith a little bit and kind of understanding the story. I think that's really interesting. And it just sounds like a really cool vibe to me. Additionally, as a High Republic fan, I'm currently reading Cataclysm. I'm super invested in the entire world of the High Republic. The fact that we're going to get a grown-up version of Vernestra Rwoh, who's one of the characters from the High Republic books in the series. Maybe we're going to get a couple other characters in the High Republic. I just think that there's a lot of really great connections there. So I think out of everything, Acolyte, I kind of know the least about, but it feels like it's really getting into that gray area of really kind of some Sith that we can sink our teeth into, Jedi maybe not being as all-knowing and all-powerful as they think they are, which is a constant threat in Star Wars. So that got me really excited.
Yeah, I think that's the vibe I get from having read all this stuff, is that it's got a little bit of that Empire Strikes Back vibe. And I mean that, like, Andor went deep into the darkness, which is, of course, a very big part of Empire Strikes Back. But there's the balance with Empire Strikes Back, that there's also still the funny moments and the creatures and all of that stuff that keeps Star Wars. And it feels like they've maybe figured out the magic formula here for these projects. And I'm hoping so. Ahsoka certainly is going to have, some Andor vibes to it. But with a Lothcat, you can't help but think there are going to be comedic moments. There are going to be moments where stuff happens there. And then when you look at Skeleton Crew, I think the fact that you've got a Jude Law who is a Force user, but maybe is in the robes or whatever. So there's questions about what side and whose side is on, which side are they on? Are they on their side? Are they on their own side? Does it depend situation to situation, what side they take? And as it happens, these kids are young adults or young teens, and that's what happens in real life. You start to have more interaction with adults. You start to wonder what side they're on. Do they really support you, or are they out for themselves? And throw in that the galaxy is in flux. What are the situations they're going to run into? And is Jude Law, does he have an ulterior motive in all of this? So what are the questions going on there? And then you throw in something like the Acolyte, which could have darker edges that you're exploring crimes or exploring things that are happening. And maybe there's an overall through line of what's going on, but you're exploring these specific situations. How are they exploring it? What's coming up for them? And clearly, again, more of the grayer area when it comes to the Force. I think that came through when I was reading these articles as well. And especially with Andor season 2, right? You're getting these 3-episode chunks just like they did in the first season, but we're going to be doing time jumps. So it's like they have the bar set, and now they're really going to try to jump over that bar and establish a new bar. And I love that Gilroy's like, look, I'm on the back end of my career. Okay. I'm not trying to prove anything to anybody. I'm just trying to make sure this works, So I love that they've got a realistic approach to how they're doing things as well. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, I really did like that. I mean, just to clarify for everybody, like as they said this, so each 3-episode chunk of Andor, which is kind of what we got in season 1, is a year, is like there's a year gap between each one of them. So it'll be 3 episodes, jump a year, 3 episodes, jump a year, 3 episodes, jump a year to a few days before Rogue One starts. And I think that as a concept is really, really great. And just a couple other like sort of overall things that I really enjoyed was like just the excitement across the board. Like, and we talked about this all the time. Not every Star War is made equal. We've gotten some really good stuff. We've gotten some pretty bad stuff. But overall, the state of Star Wars, the fact that we're getting like, and like, each one has its own vibe. Like you said, like Ahsoka, this really is the spiritual successor to Rebels, and the idea of this family coming back together.
In a different way.
Sabine, Hera, Ezra, possibly Zeb and some other characters. So Chopper. So watching this group come together, and like as Rosario Dawson says, there's not some big boss telling them what to do. There's not a rebel alliance. There's not Mon Mothma saying you need to go do this thing. This is a group of people going after somebody because they want to do it, and like what that's going to be, and like what that vibe is going to be. And Skeleton Crew, that Amblin vibe, like you said, but also just a bunch of kids in the Star Wars universe living on a planet thinking it's boring, wanting to get into a big adventure and getting in over their head. That sounds really interesting. Acolyte, super dark. Let's deal with the Sith. Let's deal with all this stuff. And then even Katie Sackhoff talking about where Bo-Katan's journey is going to go. And kind of saying that at Star Wars Celebration, everyone's like, well, why didn't you fight Din for the Darksaber? Does this mean it's all about you now? Is that all done? And she's like, just wait and see that, there's more to this Bo-Katan story. And then I think Filoni, when he, in his interview, said something really interesting, that for him, the Star Wars movies are always where you tell the giant galaxy shifting moments. And then you kind of tell a bunch of other stories around it. So for him, he was like, Andor told this really great story. Rebels tells this really great story. But it's not until Luke blows up the Death Star that things really shift and change. And so for him, diving into this big movie, he's like, this is a big galaxy shifting event that's going to have all these characters that we've been going on these adventures with. So I just think there's more to be excited about than there is to be mad about with Star Wars.
Yeah, and all of that. Absolutely, Mike. I was definitely going to get to Filoni's words as well. And let me add something more. I like the idea that Filoni said that he has been planning this for quite some time. So what's the big complaint people had about the sequel trilogy is that they felt it didn't have a plan. Like all these different directors coming in, and it's the changing of the characters and all this kind of stuff. So Filoni's making it real clear. I've been laying the seeds for quite some time for where I want to go with this. And it wasn't until Kathleen Kennedy said, hey, do you want to do a feature film, that he even thought about the idea of a feature film with all of this. So the fact that he's doing this and gets that confidence from Kathleen. And by the way, the creators of Skeleton Crew said the same thing. They went and talked to Kathleen about the Amblin-esque stuff that she was involved in. People forget, or maybe some of these fans are too young to remember, that Kathleen was an essential part of establishing Spielberg as well as a super famous filmmaker with the stuff she worked on with Frank Marshall, producing a lot of this Amblin stuff that decorated a lot of our lives as the Geek Buddies here growing up. So she's got the right person at the right time for these kinds of things. So all this argument, and I get it, people have real legitimate issues with Kathleen, but creatives trust her. Creatives go to her to ask for advice about where they want to go with this kind of stuff. And I love that. And the darker aspects of this all, the fact that Filoni came out and pretty much said it in this interview, like, Zahn is the big baddie. Oh, sorry, not Zahn. I'm sorry. Thrawn is the big baddie. Get used to it. This is the way we're going. And that's what it's going to be. And Katie, as you said in the interview, saying, just y'all wait where this is all going to, where this is leading to, making it really clear. And some great conversations she had about her child and about her experiences doing The Mandalorian. Didn't even know it was going to be so extensively focused on her and where that, and there's a reason for that, right? And people are right now, we don't know what the end result is. So all we can do is speculate or get angry or get into our feelings about how certain things were done. But it all may be leading to something that they overall want to have established. AHSOKA is going to be connected to all of this as well. Obviously with THRAWN. So what are we going to get when we get to that movie? I love that. And this idea that Kathleen said, we want to go back to eventizing Star Wars. And this has also been the complaint that people have had. Too much Star Wars, too many movies, too much all. So the fact that she wants to build up the hype, they tried it a different way, just like Star Trek and Picard. They tried it a different way in season 1 and season 2. Season 3 is what everybody was wanting to see from the beginning of that series. And so the fact that Star Wars tried something different, it didn't 100% work. And now they're going to go back to a plan that worked for them when they first were establishing themselves as a franchise, I think makes all the sense in the world. You let things build. And she said, we're not going to release a movie until it's ready. And I think that's a little bit of a solo kind of thing. We're going to wait till we got the right hype. We got the right situation. We've got it settled to where we're all happy. Then we're going to put it out. So there's a lot to take from these interviews, these articles that can give you confidence in Star Wars for sure. Shannon, what more do you have to say on those?
Well, I mean, the eventizing, I think, is absolutely the right strategy. Yeah. I mean, when it was first announced with the Disney purchase, we're getting a Star Wars movie a year. We're getting a chapter in the next trilogy, and we're getting an individual movie. Even at the time, it's like every year, that's okay. Because I remember even like after watching Phantom Menace, which I was like, okay, that wasn't exactly what I wanted, but it was Star Wars. Even feeling kind of meh on that, by the time we got to the night before episode 2 came out, I was still all excited because it was like, oh, we haven't had one of these for years. So I think not only does it sort of, build up the excitement around the film, but also it gives them time. Yeah. It gives them time to work on things and to focus. So the whole eventizing, I think, is absolutely the right call. And I thought the interesting thing, again, with Andor was they know with the first season, like they knocked it out of the park. Like they know they did. Did as many people see it as they would have liked? Maybe not. But knowing like we did it so perfectly the last time, all we can go is down. So the idea that like they know like we have to we can't enjoy the success of this too much because we have to focus on this next chapter. We have to focus on landing the plane. And it's like that was one of the advantages of having a fixed endpoint. Like we know exactly where this ends. Now we just have to get there. Right. Also, and this is one of the projects that may or may not see the light of day. But going to the Solo is Lando. Like I really hope we get to see that show.
She said it's still on the books. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well,
I hope.
Let's talk about. Let's talk about saying things are still on the books.
Okay.
There is look, as you said, Kathleen Kennedy, like a lot of creatives really trust her. They know like she's good at those relationships. Yes. Look, Rian Johnson, whether you like Last Jedi or not, Rian Johnson has more than proven in the past few years that he's talented. Like the Benoit Blanc films are killing it. Poker Face on Peacock is killing it. And so that's someone that you want to keep on your team. So saying that she and Ryan talk all the time and he's busy and we don't know, it basically means, well, I'm going to keep that out in the universe and not kill it.
Just
Taika Waititi is very busy. He's a slow writer. We have 2 really good acts. We don't really have a 3rd act yet. We'll see. That's because Taika Waititi is someone that, you're going to keep that out in the universe.
Yeah.
Like, so Lando, it's still, we're still figuring it out. Rogue Squadron, we're still figuring it out. We're still figuring it out means the whole thing is a mess and nobody knows what's going on. Like, it's like there's this very clear, we are doing the Rey movie. We are doing Filoni's movie. We are doing the Mangold Origin of the Jedi movie. We know what it is. We are all happy with it. The team is ready to go. And then there's the, we talk all the time. Well, we're going to get to it. One day. It's like, you all have those friends who are like, that friend who's like, hey guys, we should go on a trip to Europe together. Like, let's all go to Europe. And you're like, no, we're going to go to that Europe trip sometime. You're never going to Europe. You just say it. It's a thing you say. Yeah, we're going to go on that trip at some point. That sounds great. We should talk about it. I got to go, but like, Europe, you and me, maybe next year we'll talk about it. That's what those are.
Oh, so that's what was going on. Okay, good to know. No, you're right. Exactly. And you know what? She's smart to do that, because if it does come around and she's still there, because there's no guarantee Kathleen will want to stay there, she can say, we were always talking, and now that the schedule's opened up, and Ryan wants to do it. And you know, enough time has passed since Last Jedi when we can take, because if there's anything that is a pattern in Star Wars, is destroy, destroy, destroy. 10 years later, reappreciate, or 20 years later. And already people, a year after Book of Boba Fett, all these people on social media now are trying to reappraise Book of Boba Fett when they kept silent when most of the fandom was destroying that series. Now they're all like reappraising it all over again. So,
well, man, some things maybe don't need to be reappraised.
Hey, man, there are Rise of Skywalker defenders. Those are coming, Michael. Get ready for sure. All right, anything more to say on what we got in this, gentlemen? Anything more to add that we missed?
I highly recommend you check it out yourself. One of the great things about this, like, it's the classic, like, nobody can really say anything, so you got to sort of read between the lines. So there's probably stuff that we missed as well, but like, you read what they're saying and what they do say and what they don't say and how they say it and what the tone is, and like, there's a lot of information here that is going to get you excited about the next several years of Star Wars. And yeah, look, it's Star Wars is a wild ride. Being a Star Wars fan is an interesting thing, but these articles, this whole spread in Empire Magazine definitely got me hyped.
Yeah. Shannon, any final words on this?
I hope we get to see Lando. I really want to see Donald Glover put on the cape again.
Yeah.
You know what?
I don't think a Solo 2 is going to happen, but I think that's going to happen.
Here's what I'll say about Lando just really quick. And this is the Star Wars is one of those funny things, and this is where they always get caught up, is there's what you want as a fan and what you don't know you want as a fan. Right. And Star Wars does better when they give us what we didn't know we wanted. Like, yeah, we all love Lando Calrissian. We loved Lando in Empire and Return of the Jedi. Donald Glover kind of comes out the most unscathed. Even if you dislike Solo, you still like Donald Glover as Lando. But like, do we need another Lando story? Whereas on the other side of it, everybody hated Ahsoka Tano when she came out.
That's true.
And look at Ahsoka Tano now. Even with the movies, like everyone's probably the most excited about Filoni's movie because we know more or less what it is. We know that it's Bo-Katan, Din Djarin, Grogu, Ahsoka. We know this stuff. And the Rey one is probably the second most excited because, okay, it's 15 years after. She's got Luke's Jedi books, whatever. The Mangled one might be the best one because who the fuck knows about the origin of the Jedi? So Star Wars does this thing. It's like it's a little bit of the familiar and then giving you something different. So although I think Donald Glover doing Lando would be great, I'd rather they did something new and different than giving me more of that.
Well, and that's what I take away from this is my final words. I like that we're, again, expanding the franchise, expanding what the franchise can do. I mean, a CSI Jedi is a great idea. I love the fact that we're bringing in teens and a crew here to try to figure out what's going on in the galaxy. So I like that you've got to expand the brand. You've got to push the brand out, try new things, see what you can create, inspire new fans, every new generation coming through. So I like that we've got a nice mix that can appeal to every section of the Star Wars fandom coming here through these 20 pages that you're reading. So to get you excited. So yeah, go to Empire. I think it's empire.com or empiremagazine.com. You can sign up right now because you can get the digital one. If you don't want to kind of order it, you can get the digital one. It's $1 for the first month. Cancel it after you read the 20 pages and you're good to go as a Star Wars fan. So just a suggestion there.
Also, right, the Geek Buddies is not sponsored by Empire.
It's not sponsored by Empire. But, throw a little love. My friend James White writes for them. So, all right, everybody, thanks so much for joining us for this episode of Geek Buddies. We appreciate it madly. Shannon, what do we have to tell them?
Yeah, if you'd like to follow us on social media, on Twitter, it's at @geek_buddies, on Instagram at @the_geek_buddies. If you'd like to follow me on social media, on Twitter, it's at @Shannon_McClung, on Instagram at Shannon the Geek Buddy. If you would like to go and hate on Lando Calrissian, you can follow Mr. Vogel at MKToon. If you would like to follow Mr. Rocha, it is at The Rocha Says.
Mikey.
If you like bioexorcists, secret invasions, and galaxies far, far away, and smooth talking smugglers in capes, this is the place for you. So, hey, we enjoy talking about all this stuff. We love hearing from you guys about it. Here's what you guys can do for us. Smash that like button below. Subscribe to Johnny's Outlaw Nation page. Check out all the amazing content he has got there. Leave your comments below. What did you think about everything? What are you excited about? What are you less excited about? Too much Marvel, too much Star Wars, not enough of either. What do you think? Let us know below. If you are listening to us on a podcast, go ahead and leave us some stars and comments so we go up in the rankings and more people can find us. And as always, the best thing that you guys can do is retweet this video, post it on your socials, send it to your friends, and tell them to hang out with your buddies, the Geek Buddies.
There you go. Thank you all so much. We've got a big announcement coming soon for the Geek Buddies. We'll be announcing it next week on the show, but we appreciate you all hanging out with us this week as well. Have yourselves a great weekend, and we'll talk to you next time with another brand new episode of the
Geek
Buddies.